This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Welcome to episode 46 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today we're talking all about friends, in fact, friendships and travel, online or off. It's an interesting thing to me that the friends that we make on our travels, back in the old days, were always offline friends because online didn't exist, and they'd be people that you bumped into on a train somewhere, or spent a day with on a tour, or met in a hostel. And I've got quite a few of those friends, but more of them are friends that I've made online, and then when I've travelled and been somewhere they were, then I've met up. So it's a really interesting thing these days to think that it's becoming relatively normal to have friendships with people you haven't actually met in real life yet. And then when you do end up in the same place at the same time, often I think you hit it off really well because you've already established that you have plenty in common. In any case, all of this kind of friendship, travel, online, offline, this topic is what we're covering today with three guests who have some interesting tales to tell about friends they've made through travelling. But on the topic of friends, before we get on to our guests, let me ask a special request of you guys. If you would like to help me out by sharing the podcast further, think of a friend you have who loves to travel as well and might be interested in listening to the Thoughtful Travel Podcast, and share this with them. I don't mind how you do it. If you send them the link to the show notes or to the podcast in iTunes, or just tell them about it, then I would be eternally grateful. Thanks so much. We're coming up to 1 whole year of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast and 50 episodes soon as well. So it's been an exciting trip, and I want to keep it going. So please share with your friends. Now, when I think about the friendships I've made while I travel, some of the friends that I've met online first and then when traveling are easily some of the best friends I have all over the world. And I guess because I've had something important in common with them first, and then we've met up in various places, then perhaps that leads to a stronger friendship. If I think of one good friend who's been on the podcast before, Lola, who lives in Sweden and I live in Australia, obviously. And so far we've met up in person in Ireland and in Thailand. So there's all kinds of travels involved. And obviously we both work as travel writers and bloggers, and Lola's a photographer. So we have so much in common before we even meet up. But then to be able to see each other in different parts of the world is really fun and exciting, and probably adds to kind of the story surrounding our friendship and makes it even more worthwhile. In any case, my guests today have had some similar experiences. And first up, I'm chatting with Cait Flanders. Cait went on a road trip around the US last year, and really the road trip was all about catching up with friends who she'd made online and hadn't necessarily met in person yet. Some people she stayed with and caught up with she'd met before, but this was really a case of travelling for friendship's sake. The intention of this road trip was to sort of cement existing friendships. I imagine most of these people you had never met in person before.
Yeah, there was a good mix. There was, there were friends who I had like friends like Jeff Sandquist,
Mm-hmm.
who I know has been on the show. So Jeff and I actually have met a couple of times, but we have other mutual friends in Minneapolis where he's based out of. And I had never met them, but I'd Skyped with them, and we'd been chatting online for years. And they just were like, "Nope, please come here. You can stay with us. Stay as long as you like." They were incredible hosts. And just, I think, yeah, that first couple that I stayed with, I remember feeling like, wow, like you guys are my people. It was so wild how, the three of us would be driving around, and it was almost like I could finish his sentences, or like without him saying something, I would be like, "Oh, well, you're doing that for this reason." And he'd be like, "Get out of my head." Like,
oh, perfect.
And just like, your energy levels are the same, and the things that you want to do are the same. It was just so interesting to see how yeah, people you've never met before, you could be just have so much in common with and just feel like you'd known each other forever.
Oh, I love that. It feels like instant friendship, but of course it's not because you know so much about each other from online.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's magical.
And there were a few other times where I stayed with bloggers who, like, I feel extremely fortunate for that. Like, through my blog, I had other readers, other bloggers kind of reach out to me and to say, if you're in this city and you need a place to stay, we'd be happy to host you.
Oh,
And
fabulous.
I took people up on that because I was just like, they wouldn't offer it if they didn't mean it.
Exactly.
And the opportunity to talk to someone new for even if it's just a few hours and then you go to bed and get up in the morning and leave, it was so like those are some of the conversations that shaped the experience the most. And I would also say that it wasn't always easy for me to just accept that help. I think that I have been someone who naturally is the helper. And so it was sort of difficult even for me to go, okay, yes, like, people want to help and I'll take it. But it was very necessary. But I would say one of the most interesting friendships that has formed since the road trip was actually someone who I had never met with, or I'd never even known of online. And before I had even left on my trip, he had seen my first email where I kind of described, I'm getting ready to go. These are the states I'm going to. What should I do? And he introduced himself and then said, I kid you not, I just left on a 7-week road trip throughout the Western United States, and it looks like we're going to a ton of the same places.
Oh, wow.
If you'd have any interest in meeting up, like, it would be so awesome to meet. And I just thought, like, how did that happen? Like, how did we plan almost the exact same trip at the same time? And he had just left, and so I was just getting ready to leave. So we actually didn't meet until like a month and a bit into my road trip. We met in San Diego, but we exchanged numbers and kind of texted the whole time and just shared little experiences. So he would get to so he got to Missoula, Montana after me. Or he texted and saying, do you have any restaurant recommendations? And so I said, oh, you've got to go for dinner at Notorious P.I.G., which is
what a name.
Oh, it's so great. But it was a barbecue place that I had been to there, and it was amazing. And so I was like, I think it was like $15. So it was a little more than some places for when you're on the road. But I was like, it was really, really good. So you should check it out. And then after, he'd send me a picture of his food and be like, good call. That was a great dinner. So we just kind of shared our experiences as we were going, just through text messages, and then met in San Diego. And it was someone who, I think because we had been texting and kind of sharing this experience, even though we hadn't met, it felt like we'd known each other a really long time.
Oh, cool.
And even that, like, it sort of just continued into being like, oh yeah, like, you could just tell we were going to be really good friends. He's from California, but lives in New York. And then on the rest of my road trip, I stayed with his family.
Oh, wow.
Which
Amazing.
He just kind of, like, he had just gone through this experience as well. So his parents totally understood what the experience was all about. And so, yeah, I went and stayed with his family for a bit and just, saw his hometown or did little things like that. And like those are experiences I never would have had if I hadn't been open to connecting with a complete stranger online.
Yeah. As Cait and I chatted further in this conversation, we did have the whole conversation about having to be careful and trying to sort of vet the people you meet online before you meet them in real life. But, both Cait and I have never had a bad experiences, and I think most people are good. But just as a warning, please be careful about anyone you meet up with in real life who you've only known online, because there are occasional real crazy people out there. Having said that, though, my next guest, Serena Star-Leonard, has also had some really amazing experiences meeting people in person when she's met them online first. Perhaps the best example is the one she gives about the guy she met on Facebook who offered his a fancy apartment for them to stay in. But I'll let Serena tell you the story.
I guess because we've been traveling so long now, I think we left in April 2012. The friends, like, because of Facebook and like however much I'll be annoyed at how addicted I am to Facebook, it's for us has been the most amazing way to meet people and stay connected, because like I haven't been back to New Zealand for 3 years. So it's just, for example, seeing nieces and nephews grow up. But in terms of friendships that we've made, we met one guy through Facebook, actually. We were looking in Penang or Kuala Lumpur for an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on and just said to I think it was an entrepreneurs group or an expats group or a digital nomads group, and I was like, does anyone know of any apartments in this price range? And so he contacted us and said, what's your budget? And we told him. He's like, oh no, my place is like 5 times that. So then apparently he Googled us and he contacted me and he said, look, you can just stay in my house for free.
Oh, cool.
I won't be there. I've got this amazing apartment in Penang. And we were like, really? And we were like, what's the catch? And he said, no, look, I just saw your videos and I really like what you're all about. So you could just come and stay. And we were like, wow, it's amazing.
That's so cool.
And in the end, it was such a beautiful place. Like it had 5 swimming areas, the most beautiful like infinity pools overlooking the harbour.
Oh my gosh.
Had like games rooms. It had several office areas, so we could just go and work there.
Wow.
And his apartment was beautiful. And he came up about the second week just to come and meet us. Like he said his mother and his sister just said, you are crazy, because he let us in without even meeting us.
He wasn't even there. Oh my goodness.
So he came along, and then he just turned out to be the loveliest guy. We got along like a house on fire. He's moved now to England.
Ah.
He said his mum and his sister rang him and begged him not to let us come and stay, because they're like, they could be, murderers, or they could rob the whole place. And he's like, people in Malaysia don't do this. And I said, well, people in the whole world don't really do that either.
No, this is
it's
true.
Not very common to meet someone on Facebook and just give them your home when you're not even there.
Not even going to meet them first. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Amazingly trusting. I mean, I guess we have a lot of videos so people can see what we're like. So maybe we've got a little bit of an advantage there. But
yeah, at least you can kind of be sure that you're real people. And yes,
exactly.
Yeah, it makes a bit of a difference, but still.
So yeah, I mean, that kind of experience has happened to us so many times. Like. I would say now a lot of the people that I communicate the most with are people that we've met just to film their project. And so we might have only spent 1 day with them, but we're in a way more connected than maybe people we know much more intensely, because they've shared their souls with us. Like they've shared who they are, what drives them, and then we've listened and got it. And I think that's kind of hard to find with a lot of people. There's a lot of surface level stuff, and you work, for example, with people that you may not have a lot in common with. You might have shared skills, so you work in the same company, but you might not have the same values. Or
exactly.
But when we go and we meet people who are doing these projects and they're making a difference and they're dedicated to making a difference, and for us, and I think especially for me, like, I mean, John just gets along with everyone, but for me, when I meet these people and we just have this connection, it's instantaneous. And it's amazing. Like, we're seeing the best of humanity, because even though we're seeing the biggest social problems and environmental problems and conservation problems firsthand, we're also seeing the people who really are on the ground making a difference to it right now. And who've left their countries and who are just doing this thing to make a difference for no recognition, for no money. Like, they just are driven. And that experience for me, like, I feel in a way that we're in a bubble, because we're meeting the most extraordinary people in the world and letting us into their lives to follow them around for anywhere from a day to a week. But then they just are so honest and raw and open with us, because we're there with the cameras and we genuinely want to know their story. And it's the connection that I think personally I felt with those people it's a lifelong connection. And I might not see them I might meet them for 1 day or spend 2 days with them and then not see them again. And I still feel
but you'll still be connected and good friends.
Exactly, incredibly connected. And we're now hopefully we'll come back and support some of these projects. So it's hopefully a lifelong thing.
It's a bit like you've kind of pre-screened each other to have a very good chance of becoming friends anyway, because you've clearly got like lots in common and values in common, and that's really important. So Yes, it's kind of like a weird dating game kind of thing.
It's so true. I never thought of it like that. We actually do, because we find the projects that interest us, and then we contact them. So we've actually already chosen them to be our friends.
Yes, that's right. You're just stalking them a little bit.
Yeah, we totally are.
Oh dear. But in a very, very, very positive way. I definitely have to second Serena's comments early in our conversation about Facebook being a fabulous way to stay connected to people that we meet while travelling. Facebook has its ups and downs, of course, and I do get frustrated with it from time to time too. But in terms of being in sort of everyday-ish kind of contact, or at least you can see what's happening in people's lives when you have friends spread across the globe, Facebook in particular has been really a godsend for that. It's always a joy to me to scroll through my friends list and look at the people and how far-flung they are. Well, the far-flungness isn't exactly a joy, but remembering that I'm able to stay in touch with them no matter where they are in the world is fabulous. And it's my dream. Listen out there, very, very, very wealthy sponsors. But one day I want to bring together all my beautiful friends that live in all different parts of the world into one place and be able to see them all at once. That's kind of the downside of making friends while traveling, is you can never have all your friends in the one place ever again. But it's worth it. I'm still happy to have such wonderful friends all around the world. And I love Serena's stories about how the friends she's made while filming for her projects and stuff have been such good friends so quickly. Because they clearly have a lot in common. And I think that's one of those things, if you're meeting people connected to travelling, having a love of travel in common just makes it way more likely that you'll be good friends to start with. And my final guest today, Emma Mann, has a similar story to tell, except that we chatted more about meeting people in person first, but definitely knowing that pre-screening them for being travel lovers helps in cementing a good friendship.
We met in a hostel in Victoria Falls in 2009, and I will never forget it because she was this bundle of energy in this tiny little pocket rocket body, and she just is this larger-than-life human, but at the same time she's one of the most gentle, generous, beautiful souls I've ever met. And it was that same instantaneous click that I had with her, that I had with John. Rhiannon is amazing. She's an amazing human. She'd already been travelling through East Africa, and she'd come down through Tanzania and she'd flown down to Vic Falls, and that's where I met her, and she was peeling because she got sunburnt.
Oh, no.
She was very burnt. Ooh. And she was just like peeling sheds of her skin off herself.
Oh, no.
And that's what she was doing when I met her.
Oh.
She sat by the pool and she was just peeling strips of skin off herself.
What an interesting introduction.
And having a cigarette and chat away to the local guys. And she's like me. She's not interested in talking to other tourists. She wants to talk to locals. When I met her, she was a vet nurse in Australia. She'd gone over and she'd done some volunteering, and we just happened to be booked onto the same overland tour on the same date. And it was magical. It was really great. So we ended up through Zimbabwe and Mozambique together, and we finished up in Johannesburg and spent a couple of days there together. And then the next year we went back together, and that was the Christmas that I went to Kenya and Tanzania.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was, that's probably one of my favourite people that I've met.
Yes. Why do you think that when you travel you've got a better chance of meeting like really like-minded people, or how do you think that works?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. For me though, as I'm getting older, I find it more difficult to meet people in the same age group as myself.
Right.
Because I'm nearing my mid-30s now, and I'm finding that because I still do, when I'm traveling for my own self and not for work, I do a lot of budget travel. So I'm still staying in a lot of hostels and things like that. And obviously the majority of people in a hostel, the average is about 10 years younger than me.
Sure, yeah.
So, which is fine. It just, there's a lot of naivety and a lot of youth in their thoughts.
Yeah, of course.
And
yeah.
I look back 10 years.
Different
and
phase
I
of life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was exactly the same at the same age.
Yeah, same. Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
And at the same time, I want to shake them and
listen to me.
I'm older and I'm a lot wiser. And
you can be too. Just listen.
Yeah, just listen to what I have to say, because obviously I know everything. So just let me impart my wisdom.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. So it's probably harder to make a lot of like deep friendships when you're not coming across people of a more similar age. Yeah.
Now that the friendships that I am when I'm meeting new people when I'm overseas, they're more transient. They're not lifelong friends forever type thing.
In fact, one of the most interesting parts of Emma's story to me is that she met this girl, Rhiannon, in the hostel, and then they discovered that they were booked onto the same overland tour through Southern Africa. It's those kind of coincidences that I just love when you travel, and, you know, I just think it's all meant to be. I've definitely met some amazing people just completely randomly on my travels that have turned into those kind of lifelong friends. And you just think of the odds against ever meeting, and then there you are, same place, same time, enough time together to really get to know each other and to become firm friends. Love that stuff. I can't speak about friends without being reminded of my beautiful friend Yuko in Japan. I've mentioned her on an episode or two before, but I'm just trying in vain to find her in Japan. And I have a post on my blog all about Yuko and how I really want to find her, because this was the problem. We met before the internet was a huge thing. We had email, but we didn't have Facebook and no social media. And then she's got this common name and she's just impossible to find. So I'll put a link to the in the show notes to that post, because I'm just determined to somehow find someone who can find Yuko for me. But in any way, at least Emma hasn't lost touch with her friends. So that's fabulous. Now, I'd love to hear about some of the friendships you've made while you're travelling. And have you ever met up with someone who you'd met online first and then been in the same neighbourhood on your trips and caught up with them in real life? And did it go well? I'm guessing that nearly always the answer is going to be yes, but I'd love to hear your stories. So hop over to the Facebook group. It's at Thoughtful Travellers, and there'll be a link in the show notes if you have any trouble finding it. Just need to request to join and I'll approve you. And you can also tell me your tales on Twitter, Instagram or Facebook. I'm at Amanda Kendall on Twitter or Instagram, and use the hashtag #ThoughtfulTravelPod and I will find you. And finally, as I would love to receive some more of these great reviews I've been getting, because they really make my week. If you're in iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast, hop in and leave a review just to help share the show more widely. So finally, a huge thanks to my really interesting guests as usual. First up, we listened to a chat with Cait Flanders, and you can find Cait at caitflanders.com. She's C-A-I-T, Cait. And have a listen to her Budgets and Cents podcast if you need some more tips to save enough money to go travelling. Cait has some fantastic ideas. You can find them at budgetsandscents.com. And after Cait, I chatted with Serena Star-Leonard. I've got a couple of links in the show notes for Serena's current work, including her Retire in 12 Months project and the Travel Kids Club. And finally, Emma Mann, who has a couple of blogs as well. She's at The Vagabond Feminist at thevagabondfeminist.wordpress.com. And if you are more into being hungry or getting over being hungry, try her Flying Foodie blog, which is flyingfoodieadventures.com. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.
Jackrabbit FM. For your ears.
Who is that? Hi, Podcast.